Good morning and good afternoon or good evening to everyone. We will just give everyone a minute or two to dial in and settle. I see we have already 40 people, which is very exciting. 50 now, so that goes fast. Maybe to check, double check if everyone can hear me. Can I ask you to to write the country you're dialing in from in the chat box? Then that will give me sort of a confirmation that you can hear me. Okay, great. This works. Switzerland, Netherlands, Italy, UK, United States. And also very nice to see all those different countries. Perfect. So maybe I'm going to ask Farah and Adam to help me a bit with all the people who are still dialing in, to let them in. But I think for now we can start the session. It's in Central European time, 1 minute past 4. So Dutch punctuality, we will say we will start the webinar now. And again, a warm welcome to everyone who's joining. From my side, my name is Robert. I'm the founder of Dazzle. We organized today's webinar. Very quickly, what we do with Dazzle is for the ones who don't know yet, we help sustainability teams to work with independent consultants. Yeah, and a bit about the session of today. There are a couple of house rules I would like to talk you through. We have a chat function, as you already have seen and used to write the country you're dialing in from. If you have any questions during the webinar, please write them already in the chat function or in the Q&A. Both is fine. And then towards the end of the webinar, we will go through the chat, go through the Q&A, and yeah, answer those as much questions we will answer live towards the end of the webinar. So again, if you have any questions during the webinar, please already feel free to write them there in the chat function. Other than that, we have polls. So my co-host Farah and myself will be launching a few polls in the beginning. We would love to hear from you just to also feel a bit where everyone is at when it comes to sustainability communication and the challenges that you guys are facing. And then as a final one, about the webinars that we host with Dazzle, every month, the audience can vote at the end of each webinar which topic we tackle in the next webinar. So there's also a final poll at the end of the webinar where we have 4 new topics outlined. And yeah, we will ask everyone to vote then as well when we close the webinar so that we make sure we host a relevant webinar next time again. So that's the way we approach these webinars with Dazzle. We are very excited today to host on the topic of sustainability communications, and specifically the do's and don'ts. And we have a powerhouse panel which will introduce themselves in a bit. And before so, I will hand over to my co-host Farah for her to introduce herself and speak a bit more about today's topic.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you to our Indeed Powerhouse panel for joining today's session and for everyone who's here with us. I'm sure this is going to be a very, very exciting session because we have a very exciting topic. So before we get to that, my name is Farah. I'm the Global Community Manager for Dazzle. I am managing the amazing Dazzle freelancers. It's the best part of my job, I think, because I get to talk to amazing, brilliant, inspirational people as part of my role within Dazzle. So that's what I do. And today I'm going to be co-hosting this panel, where we're going to focus on sustainability communications, a very important, a very interesting, and sometimes a bit of a painful topic, which is why we have an amazing people here joining us who will be talking to us about their experiences. We're going to have a very candid discussion. This is something we like to do on every session. And I think I'm not going to do justice if I introduce everyone myself. So I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. I think that's going to be much better. I will start with Beatrice, who is the Dazzle freelancer focusing on sustainability communication. Beatrice, do you want to tell us a bit about your background?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Beatrice. It's great to be here. I'm from Portugal. I'm based in Amsterdam for the last 8 years. I'm a freelancer and I specialize in helping organizations communicate about sustainability. I also have a background as a sustainability consultant, so I've actually also helped clients in the development of, strategies, policies, reporting frameworks. I've worked with the whole alphabet soup of standards. So I think I combine that more technical knowledge with communications experience, and I just really enjoy translating complex sustainability information and data into something that an external audience will understand, something that an internal audience will feel motivated by. So I've helped clients develop all kinds of communication materials, from sustainability reports to LinkedIn campaigns, internal newsletters, etc. And yeah, very happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beatrice. Juliette, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Juliette Gossem. I have 15 years of experience in sustainability, different type of organizations, startups, nonprofit, working at GRI, listed companies like head of ESG, reporting at Signify. And for 2 years now, I'm the global head of sustainability at Netseed. And Netseed is a private company, which is a major distributor of telecom equipment. So in this part of the job, I oversee all the related topic, including communication. So I really hope that I can bring some insight to the discussion of today. And thank you, Dazzle, for the invitation.
Thank you, Juliette. Samara, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. So hi, everyone, wherever you are, and thank you for having me today on this panel. So my name is Samara, and I'm based in Switzerland, in Geneva. I work for Ansell. We are a global company that specializes in protective solutions, most particularly in personal protective equipment. Here at Ansell, I lead the sustainability communications team. And very similar to Beatrice, what we do with my team is we try to turn complex social and environmental data into engaging, impactful storytelling that hopefully resonate with customers. So I'm happy to be here, and hopefully we will have useful discussions for you all.
Thank you so much. Jessica?
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to be here. My name is Jessica Lenhart. I am the Director of Sustainability at US Polo ASSN, which is the official brand of the United States Polo Association, which is the governing body for the sport of polo here in the United States. I lead the sustainability across our global brand, across all categories, apparel, accessories, footwear, etc. Prior to this, I've been at other brands and I worked at Fairtrade. So I've been in the space specifically in the apparel industry for about 12 years. And included in my job is communications, which I've worked with the Dazzle team on before. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Yeah, I feel even more excited about this discussion since all of you are so experienced and this is such an interesting topic. I think before we move to the actual discussion, it's a good idea to kind of do a bit of a pulse check with our audience so that we can do the polls. Robert, do you want to launch the polls?
Yes, let's see that all goes well. Yeah, I think we have a few polls lined up, right? There are four polls.
We have 5 actually.
5 polls.
Yes.
So I think you should be able to go through them pretty quickly and see the results live as well. Can everyone see the polls that I just launched? Maybe to check with Farah.
Yes, I
Okay.
can see.
Okay, that's good news. Yeah, so I think the first question is, how would you describe your company sustainability communication? That is the first one where we have 4 answers for you to respond to.
Yep.
The
next
second
one is
one. Yeah.
the biggest challenge in sustainability communications, which I think we're going to talk about challenges definitely during this session. It's not an easy topic to handle.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the third is on how does your company measure the impact of sustainability communications, which is also something we will talk about a bit more in detail during the discussion. Farah, would you like to go through the next?
Yes, for sure. Which audiences are hardest to engage with sustainability communications? I think it's also a very important component of sustainability communications, understanding your audience. And when you do that, is it easy or difficult for you to actually engage with them?
Yep. Obviously, a difference with internal, external communications. And then the final one is your primary goal for sustainability communication. So why are you doing it? It's to build trust, to inspire people, differentiate the brand. There are obviously different motivations for you to work on the topic. And yeah, I believe you can also see the results, which should be pretty interesting. So yeah, it's I see here that for 28%, for the first question, how would you describe your your company's sustainability communication is guided by the sustainability strategy or is reactive? The biggest challenge is engaging the right audience through the right channels. How does your company measure the impact? Isn't really tracked that much, has been voted the most. And then which audiences are the hardest to engage with, which is, I think, pretty interesting, is employees. So that means basically
That's
the
surprising.
colleagues. Yeah, the colleagues of the responsible people, of the colleagues of the sustainability managers, directors who are working on this. And I think it also says quite a lot that perhaps internal communications, when it comes to sustainability, has the priority for now over external communications, but that's something we can touch upon later.
Mhm.
And the primary goal is to build trust and credibility. So I think that sets the scene, right? You can maybe,
Yes, amazing. Some of them
yeah.
were a little surprising to me. Some of them were not, but I'm sure we're gonna tackle these one by one as we're progressing in our discussion. So the way we're going to structure our discussion is around the do's and don'ts of sustainability communication, which Dazzle freelancer Beatrice was very kindly putting together for this session. And what I'm going to do, I'm essentially going to cover the topic and then do the do and don't. Like, what is the do for this topic and what is the don't? And we have 6 points. And first, Beatrice, I'm going to ask you to elaborate because you're the author, and then I would love to hear from the industry experts here about what their experience or what their insights into this is. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to make sustainability communication part of your overall strategy, and this is the main point. And the do of this is align communications with your wider sustainability strategy so that they kind of reinforce each other. They communicate with each other. And the don't is do not treat sustainability communication as an afterthought or an isolated PR exercise. So can you elaborate a little bit on this, Beatrice?
Sure. So I feel like to me, this is the big one. And I think if there's one tip to remember from today, maybe it's this one. So I'll spend a bit more time on this one. To make sustainability communications part of your overall strategy, I would also add that it's important that your communication strategy is actually in service of your sustainability strategy. And the clearest example for me is the annual sustainability report. And I think, often the annual sustainability report is something that's developed by the sustainability team in isolation, sometimes as a check the box exercise, when actually it could be a really powerful moment of reflection internally as a strategic exercise, asking, all these questions of reassessing the strategy, progress against targets, what can we improve on? And I feel like it's sometimes a missed opportunity in terms of, what I find really exciting about the work I do is having different teams in the same room and that turning into a very strategic discussion, and those teams not, otherwise they wouldn't be in that room together. And so I think creating those moments can be great for actually advancing your sustainability strategy. I would also add that not only in the development process of the annual sustainability report, but also like post-publication, it's also sometimes a missed opportunity there. I mean, companies spend months developing the report, publish it, talk about it for a week, and then it's kind of put on the shelf for the rest of the year. And it's a pity because a lot of that content can be reused and repurposed as internal communication material to create internal momentum, to keep people motivated and engaged, but also externally, to create accountability, to engage with different stakeholders. So for me, those are two really clear moments where those communication moments can really serve your sustainability strategy and can really actually help you drive sustainability initiatives in the organization. And I'm sure we're going to touch on a few of these points in more detail in the tips that follow this one. But yeah, for me, this is a huge one. I feel like this is the most important one.
Okay, amazing. So essentially what you're saying is that it needs to be a holistic exercise, bringing together strategy and communications part and not just tackling one without necessarily consulting the other. I think it's kind of easier for from a consulting point of view to always see this. It's clear as the sky, but when you're in the company and you're the one responsible for communication and there's someone else responsible for the strategy, then engaging that person, which kind of also came through the polls, is not always very straightforward. Jessica, I'd love to hear from you. What is your experience with this? When you're building the communication, do you consult the strategy, or is it something that you find challenging?
It is challenging, and I think, Beatrice, you nailed it. I think it is, and it was interesting that it came up that engagement with employees is one of the most challenging. I think when you go to your communications team, whether it's based with sustainability and a PR team, I think sustainability for people outside of sustainability can feel very intimidating and overwhelming. Beatrice in the beginning said alphabet soup. I think we love our acronyms. We love kind of speaking our own language. And all of us know if you read a sustainability report cover to cover, you can feel pretty overwhelmed with the amount of information. And I think when it comes to communications, it's really important to take the time. And I know we don't have a lot of extra time, but I have found it really helpful to take the time to sit down with all teams, but obviously your communications team is critical in this conversation, to really explain the strategy, to explain what it means, because to us, it may seem pretty straightforward, but to people who are not in the sustainability space, it can seem very foreign, it can seem very complicated. So I have found success, even if it's over a lunch, or making it feel a little bit more casual, making all of your internal team and stakeholders feel part of the strategy and feel like they have the confidence to talk about these things, because otherwise it's essentially your communications team is trying to communicate something that may feel like a foreign language, and that is hard to do. So I recommend taking the time to sit down with your teams and make sure that they feel comfortable with the topic and the strategy, so that they feel empowered to go make those communications appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Would you say this requires a bit of cultural shift? And if someone is responsible for sustainability communications, they also need to participate very actively in sort of building awareness and creating this momentum, so that it's then when the right time comes easier to engage the relevant stakeholders.
Yeah, of course. I think sustainability has come a long way in the last decade or two, and the initiatives and the momentum and the programs out there are phenomenal, but we have to bring everyone along with us. And I think that sometimes is a miss, and we often find ourselves in a silo. And I see more and more that we're branching out, and we're finding sustainability is a line item in a lot of other job descriptions that may not have sustainability in the title, which is phenomenal. But even so, we are the material experts, and I think it is our responsibility to support that cultural shift, to support other people in our organizations, to bring them along. I often say we have to make sustainability sustainable. If we were to disappear, this needs to continue within the organization. So it is definitely a cultural shift, and I'm not saying it will always be an easy one, but I do find it a critical piece of doing the work to make sure everyone feels like they're part of this journey.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much. This was very helpful, Jessica. Juliette, can you tell us a bit about your experience? How was it for you?
Yes, it's very interesting, and I agree with all that what Beatrice and Jessica has said. I've been in two different kind of organization where the maturity in terms of sustainability is slightly different. So sometimes the communication team was asking for some content because the value proposition was very clear and the business case was clear. It was part of the commercial speech and the overall company business commercial strategy. So that is a nice place to be, but sometimes, and most of the time, unfortunately, you need to push. And so what I've done is to make sure that there is always a line of communication and regular meetings with the communications teams, like what are you working on? Okay, branding, how can we integrate sustainability in your new branding strategy? Okay, I have this communication going on. Is it, and just to align always, I think we have a bi-monthly meeting minimum to have this ongoing conversation. And I agree with Jessica that this is our role to push and make sure that the messaging is out there. So we will always, I think that's how I view it, we will always be the content expert. So we will know the details, but in front of us, at least in my position, you have communication experts. So I'm always willing to ask, how do you wrap this message for this audience? What would be the right tool to use? And this is very much complementary. And so, yeah, that's my experience to that. And again, it depends the maturity of the organization. If it's you need still to do the business case for sustainability. In that case, then if it's not overall part of the strategy, you need to work with different access with to make sure sustainability is part of all the operations. And then suddenly, the cultural shift will come, but might take a bit of time. We just need to keep on going.
Absolutely. I think you touched upon a very crucial point in terms of the maturity is very, very important. You really need to understand whether or not you're on the same wavelengths as the stakeholders that you're trying to engage. And obviously when a company is more advanced in their maturity, then it's kind of organic and natural that the strategy and communications are going to go hand in hand. But when not, then that is something that probably needs to be carried by the communications team. Samara, can you tell us about your experience?
Yes, sure. So I think I agree with all the comments made. But my background is not sustainability. So I started as being in the commercial team. And I think if you are here to provide some tips and insights, I think the winning formula is always finding someone who has a commercial mindset. Because yes, sustainability at the end of the day it's about compliance. So you need to disclose your data, environmental data, especially if you're a certain size, a company of a certain size. But I do think having somebody who, and now it's very difficult to find, but having someone who has a commercial mindset, but also is aware of compliance, data verification would be the key. Because now that as part of what I do, we are responsible for sustainability reporting, I see more and more a lot of the stakeholders, which I was one of them beforehand, you think of, especially for reporting, you think of it as something you owe to the people who are making the report. You don't really think of it as your story because, but when you look at it deep down, if you are at operations, if you are a manufacturing site, R&D, who is working on the products, essentially what it is a chance also for you to tell your story, to tell your team's story, how the optimizations you made along the way, how you better collaborated. And I think the way is so rigid and how the setup is so rigid, people all are thinking about maybe ticking a box rather than telling a story. So I think a key, I feel like a success factor, at least the way I perceive it, is to find somebody who is able to build bridges between the financial people, the people who are facing the customers, and also the regulations and the legal team, which essentially what it comes down to. You want to be compliant, but you also want to make sure that at the end of the day, you're thinking about the longevity of your business and the financial element of it, because if you're not profitable, you cannot be sustainable. So I think that for me, the success factor is finding that profile that has a commercial background, but is aware of what's happening in the environment of sustainability, how to be compliant, and can speak a language that resonates with different stakeholders and not just focus on reporting, I would say.
Your answer actually perfectly ties to the next point that I wanted to cover, which is tie your narrative to real world impacts. And I think this is exactly what you're saying, like have someone who understands and speaks both languages, kind of like, okay, because sometimes when you're looking at sustainability report, it's numbers, it's data, but there's no context to it. Like, why are we even talking about it? And sometimes when you're trying to engage stakeholders internally, exactly what you said, it's like, okay, let me just get this data to this person who's writing the report and get it done with. But then there is no coherent narrative behind it. There is no understanding of this is actually my story to tell as well. So what would you, how would you tackle this? How would you say, yes, it's possible to actually, show the real world impacts, connect the real world impacts to the narrative? I think you already mentioned that you need to have someone who understands and speaks both languages, but do you think it's enough? And if yes, then what would be the special role of this person?
Yeah, I think that you definitely, I think in the beginning, we mentioned also that sustainability, in essence, it's a tough topic to communicate because it does have a negative annotation to it, right? So you are raising concerns about environmental and social issues. And if you add to that all these expressions like net zero, things that we think everybody knows, but really the majority of the readers or people you deal with don't know. So if you add that complex data and narratives to also the day-to-day reality of what you're trying to communicate, then your message gets really diluted. And again, I think what is important is changing the narrative, the outcome and what you want to achieve. So I always think that you should ask yourself, I think it's a difficult question to ask, but as a consumer, whatever you buy, you're always looking for the impact it has on you, the benefit it has for you, right? So I think when you are creating communications related to sustainability, you should always ask yourself, why should somebody care? When they write, when they read our report, if they read it, because it's very long for most companies. But if the communication you put out there, what's in it for the end user, for the customer? How is it impacting their day-to-day life? Whatever it is that whatever business it is that you're active on. And I know it's a difficult formula to have all the insights for, but I do think instead of just really concentrating on we have a target of net zero, for example, or we want to have 100% renewable energy in our manufacturing side, which is all great and it's difficult to achieve. But maybe you should shift the narrative and ask what's in it for the end user. And I think this is something we always practice with the team, which is actually one of the copywriters we work with, she brought it in, is the 6 W's, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, is why, what, when, how. I think that you have to ask those questions and what's in it for the end user. You always put yourself in the shoes of somebody who will read your material and ask, why should they care about that?
So to make sure that the communication does not sound too preachy or abstract, but actually people can relate to it. Thank you, Samara. That was really insightful. Beatrice, I'd like to hear from you because again, you're the one who came up with this point. What was your thought process behind this?
Yeah, no, I was dying to jump in as Samara was speaking because I just agree with everything she said. That's exactly on point. So I think I was earlier this week, I was in a meeting with the head of sustainability of a company who was telling me that a lot of the communication around sustainability so far had been very negatively framed. So it was very much like the planet is burning, we have to save the planet. And we both agreed that what was missing was a story of what is the positive, tangible impact that the company is creating? What's the sphere of influence? What's the story of those real world impacts? And it's often, I think, something that it's hard to do, but it is so necessary. And I mean, we're human beings, we connect with those stories and much more than sometimes like lofty targets and sort of abstract numbers, right? So yeah, I think every organization should have a sustainability narrative. And by that, I mean, a story of what your organization does and how that positively impacts the world. It sounds simple, but it's really powerful once you have that story set in place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Jessica, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree with everything. It's a fine line. It's challenging. And I know we all kind of play that game of giving enough information, being factual, giving context, but not being so over prescriptive that the consumer just glazes over because we've gone too far and it doesn't make any sense. So finding that like everyone is saying, finding that sweet spot of where we can be factual, but where the narrative comes back to show the consumer real world impacts. I would also say, for anyone having challenges, and I know this is a challenging topic to communicate sustainability, from a brand perspective, most of our data comes from third parties. So we work with outside organizations, depending on the topic, whether it be something like cotton or human rights, and bringing your communications person into conversations with those folks because they know best how to communicate their specific topic and their data. They do this all day, every day, and their data looks different than the data from this company or this company, and they can help bring together with your communications person, your brand story around those initiatives. So we have found a lot of success and we've found it really helpful to reach out to our third-party communication folks and say, how do you suggest we communicate this? Safely for greenwashing legislation and making sure we're factual and we're not saying anything that isn't true, but also to help. They are great at helping tying your communication brand story to their topic. So for all of us that are strapped with resources, your third-party vendors that help with any of initiatives, they also have communications folks on staff, and they are a great resource.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's very interesting. I think one of the questions I, for example, always have and I receive a lot is when you do sustainability communications, specifically when we're talking about reporting as a compliance exercise, like there's some sort of regulation or a standard that you need to follow. So how do you find that balance between keeping it impactful, keeping it still authentic and genuine, but still follow, the applicable framework to the T? I think it's a bit challenging, probably. So I'm curious to hear how you, for example, find that balance.
It's very challenging. It is a tough topic, and I think we all agree, and we're all kind of in alignment in that finding that sweet spot by no means is easy, and we don't do it overnight. And we personally had a lot of help from the Dazzle team because it is challenging. You want to be very honest and factual, but you want it to be inspiring. You want consumers to know that you're here on a journey with them, that you're doing the best you can. You want to be honest, but like we were saying, you don't want there to be this negative connotation to the planet is burning and everything is horrible when we're all trying to do the best we can in this space to move the needle forward. And so I don't have the silver bullet to that question. I think it's a tough one, and it's going to be a different answer for every brand and every organization. And like we were saying in the last question, based on your maturity, where you are in your sustainability, I think it will also change. I think brands that are much further ahead also have brought their consumers further ahead, and their consumers may understand these topics a bit better than those that are maybe just starting on their sustainability journey. So it will really depend on where your brand is and what you feel comfortable with. But all that to say, I wish I had the perfect answer, but it is a really challenging spot. And I think we're all kind of in this together and using each other. And like I said, your third parties as resources is a great way to find that niche where your brand perfectly fits in.
Thank you for answering that so candidly. Juliette, since you have worked across diverse organizations with diverse maturity levels, what would your answer be to that question?
Very shortly, I mean, any sustainability data and reporting need a context, right? And I think that's why this qualitative information is always important to link that back to the real world, but also to the context of the organization, because health and safety in a manufacturing won't be the same importance, let's say, in a health and safety in a service company. So that helps to link that back to the real world. And what is your company really impact positive or negative. And I think that's the starting point to elevate a bit, like where you position yourself in this big contextual, climate change, job security, what is your role and what is your purpose. So you could link that back also to the purpose of the organization and where this organization sits for this real world impact. And overall, all of this communication, it's basically to bring trust, right, in your stakeholders, to your investors, to your employees, to your suppliers, that you're doing the right thing. And by experience, you always want to tell the good thing, right? But that can be understood, because I don't know if that's really build trust when you have a very polished report and very nice, only positive communication. So when I was thinking, I was like, yeah, it's good, but you're tempted to only tell the good story, but bringing a bit like, okay, what is also your negative impact? And companies usually don't like to really talk too much about that, but these bring also trust. And the overall goal of this sustainable communication would be, this is a reality, but we are working on it. And so it's really this piece that I think we need to keep in mind. How to link to the real world impact is like, have a honest, if your legal team allow you, honest conversation on these topics as well. That will bring overall trust.
Yes, I think that was a really great disclaimer about the legal team, because I think even sometimes the ambition to be fully transparent is there. There are so many implications that go into this that the end result is, and it's not always as transparent as the ambition was. Thank you, all of you. This was very insightful. I think that we can tackle the next 2 points sort of in tandem, because they are about choose the right format for each audience and match your messages to the right channels. And the do's and don'ts are adapt your communication formats to suit your audience, and do not assume that one long sustainability report or one format will meet everyone's needs. Beatrice, do you want to elaborate on this a little bit?
Sure. I think it follows from what we said earlier about the annual sustainability report being, there's nothing wrong with that being like the cornerstone of your communication strategy. It can be your go-to document. It can be your North Guide. But few people will actually sit down and read it cover to cover. So it is about repurposing and reusing that content and targeting it to different audiences throughout the year as well. So not letting that moment of the publication of the report just happen in that week, like have it be more of a long-term kind of like rollout of the report. I always give the example of Tetra Pak. They do a 5-page summary highlights every year together with your annual sustainability report, which I think works really well. IKEA does really good topic-specific reports. So they'll do a climate report, they do a people's report, which I think works well as well. I recently worked with the client on a sustainability manifesto, and that was a 10-page communication output where it was, very much like, what's our story, what's our vision statement, the ways we work, our values, and it was mostly meant to actually inspire and engage with internal employees, but also something that can be part of onboarding new employees, as sort of to say, like, this is where we stand, what we believe in, what we want to be doing. So yeah, just thinking about what are different outputs you can create, and having that sustainability report be your go-to document, but don't forget that there's so many other ways to engage with different audiences.
What would your response be to a potential client, for example, that says, you know what, we already have a limited budget, we already have limited resources, we're barely producing one report, and now you're asking us to do like 5 different reports? How would you tackle that?
Well, I often say that it's literally just reusing and repurposing the same content. So it's actually so cost efficient if you think about it. I think it's actually silly to invest all that time and money into publishing one report and having just it sit on a shelf for the rest of the year. I feel like that's the true waste of resources. So if you just do a little bit more of work, put a bit more effort into actually taking that information and repurposing it, it's like the impact is so huge. So I think that's the argument I would use often. It's a better investment if you take it a bit further. Like it's like 2 steps further than what you normally would.
What is your take on this, Samara?
Yeah, I fully agree as well. I think that if you have already resources to create a report, a lengthy report, you probably have 1 or 2 resources to dedicate to summarize it. And indeed, I think what is important is to know your target audience. Probably the discussions that your CEO has or the discussions you need to have with your board is different from what your commercial team the type of discussions your commercial team has with the customers. So, and I think also like because I come from a B2B company, knowing who you're talking to is so important, your target audience, because obviously if you are like a case of Ansel, your target audience is probably not on Instagram or it's not on social media channels apart from LinkedIn. So you need to find the right way, the right channel to choose to communicate. And definitely, yeah, you need to understand also what type of which pipelines the people are talking about sustainability. And again, we come back to the fact that you really need somebody or a team that is in touch with different stakeholders, and it's not someone who is purely about regulation and legal team and regulatory, but it's someone who has a connection to the commercial teams and other people at across the organization, so that they can make that link of communicating effectively.
Thank you. What is your thought on this, Juliette?
When I first saw the do and the don'ts, I was like, I'm going to tend to disagree, because I do like my sustainability reports but it's exactly what Beatrice said. By experience, having this as a repository, as publicly available audited information that anyone can copy paste for any communication, this is your go-to document. This is top. So that's why now I'm like, I don't have a report, I need a report. So I'm working on having a report, because this is the starting point. And then you cherry pick. Sometimes you put the whole document for the ratings, sometimes you extract some metrics and materiality for your investors. And then the communication team can wrap a bit the messaging differently for different channels to commercial teams and so forth. So that is the one do absolutely to have. I think it's to have all of this information that you've thought through, that it's factuals, and then you can use that also like in commercial pitch, but also we were talking about new joiners, like having the recruitment team having this as a starting point for them to have a branding for talent recruitment. You work with the team on that one. Okay, what we can say? You can say this. How you wrap it, that is up to you to see how it can be attractive to the person that will read it. So that this document is super important. And then if you have an email top down and you had an engagement campaign, all of that will depend of the overall goal of how you want to engage with your stakeholders with this communication. But having this report, I think it's a good starting point so for you as a professional to have all your ideas and your strategy organized and in this report. And I think that's yes, that would be my input to this right format. The first format of all would be, I would say, the annual report.
Okay, we do talk a lot about the report as the main format, but you talked about different channels. Are there any other ways of engaging the relevant stakeholders apart from the report format, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, it depends of your stakeholders. I would talk differently to my board and have maybe in 2 slides what is the risk approach and what, you would frame it differently for the different lengths to your stakeholders, like what Samari was saying, what is in it for them, right? And you always need to reach, but then the channel also, if we look at, I think there is a question about internal communication on how to engage the employees. I'm not surprised with the poll that might be the most challenging teams to engage with, because everybody has at heart sustainability, but when it comes to the day-to-day work, it might be sometimes challenging to make the link and engaging with them. So the channels, I've experienced companies that have kind of an internal social media channel, which it's nice to connect with your employees, because an intranet or emails feels a bit top down. So I think if you have the budget to have some more informal type of engaging with your employees, if it's online, of course, in person, if you can, is always also a good idea. But I've experienced this kind of social media for companies, and it was good. It was nice. It was better than the intranet. It's not bulletproof, and that's only how you need to communicate. But that was a channel that I found, from a sustainability standpoint, nice to have a two-way communication and not just top down. For sustainability, it's not always the right way to engage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jessica, do you want to elaborate on this point?
Yeah, I would definitely elaborate on that. And I see a question similarly about how to get employees interested when we know everyone is busy, everyone has different priorities. And I would agree with Juliette. We actually have an internal system specifically on sustainability. So we have gamified sustainability within our organization. So we've made it fun. We've made it not about our sustainability strategy, but rather what people can do in their day-to-day lives. And bringing that, like we were saying before, into real world experience, making our employees feel like they're part of this. And I feel when we do that, we gamify it, we make it fun, we make it light, people can win prizes, they start to think about sustainability more and more on the day-to-day, and they start to find the best ways that they can incorporate sustainability into their own roles. I mean, we have quarterly events, we do things like plant-based cooking classes, things that are fun, entertaining, bring your employees along, and make this feel a little less overwhelming. And I think, and I have found it empowers folks to start thinking about sustainability more and more.
Amazing, thank you. I think we already covered 5 out of 6 points. We kind of very organically also covered the start inside. Employees are your best ambassadors, and I think what your insights were fantastic in terms of, you need to tailor depending on the maturity of the of the individuals or the group that you're talking to. The last point is about the elephant in the room, essentially greenwashing, a very scary word for a lot of people, especially working in sustainability communications. Beatrice, do you want to speak about your experience, since you work with so many different clients?
Yes. So yeah, I'll go out and say that I don't think a lot of the greenwashing that happens is actually deliberate dishonesty. I actually think it often comes from just really an internal disconnect between different teams, and lack of fact checking internally within the organization. So there could just be a misunderstanding between the product team and the sustainability team, between the sustainability team and the communications team. So I think we're always kind of circling back to that first point of internal alignment, and that having communication moments be those moments of internal alignment, and even like reassessing strategy and all of that. So that you can have, for instance, like make those moments like where you have different teams in the same room, because they're going to fact check each other, and then you're going to mitigate the risk of the wrong information being put out. So I think that's key. I also feel like in terms of greenwashing, we would all sort of benefit from, there's a style of communication in sustainability where I think we're going there, which is very much like, let's learn from each other and let's be honest and transparent, and everyone in the panel already kind of touched upon this. And I think if we embrace that style of communication, which ultimately I think is also one of the reasons why we should communicate about sustainability, is actually to help each other move the industry forward, share best practices, share successes, but also failures. If we embrace all of that and we go from we have it all figured out to actually let's learn from each other, then you're also mitigating greenwashing. So those two things of like creating internal alignment, but also the style of communication you employ is really important as well.
Okay, amazing. Juliette, I would also be curious to hear your thoughts, since I think you're also coming from, you said you work with GRI. Yeah.
Yes, for GRI, and then companies shifted to the other side, to the company side. But well, this topic is only growing. I think more and more, the more we learn about sustainability, the more we know what you can or cannot say. So it's good. It's going on a good the good trend. In my role at Group Sustainability Head, it's important, and I agree, it's not always from bad intent. It's just like how you can equip all the companies understanding the risks related to greenwashing. And again, I go back to this credibility trust, because that's what we are trying to achieve here. And so just as tips, like how you can do that, of course, there is a training session that I do, like about communication, what you can or cannot say. And I have this one-pager do and don'ts, like a bit what Beatrice did for us today, about what you can or cannot say for corporate sustainability or product sustainability related. If we talk about circular economy or recyclability, recycled content, like what you cannot do. That I found quite useful, because you can always refer people to this document, and it's there, it's still in intranet, and it's part of the toolkit that you can have for all your employees. And you can, and I always, when I do these quarterly webinars with all the employees, always refer back to, in case of that, check with the communication team, but you also have these documents available there. So I think that can help to bring awareness about, actually everybody could, for some reasons, do a communication that is borderline greenwashing without even noticing it, and the bar will increase more and more. So we need to be vigilant on what does, and the regulation will come into place anyway. So sooner or later, it will also be a compliance exercise where other professionals in our teams will check as well. But
Thank you.
that could be one tip.
Yeah, I saw a lot of nodding from both Jessica and Samara, so I'm going to assume that they agree, and I'm just cognizant of time, and we have only 10 minutes left. And to be fair to our audience, I'm going to switch and ask some questions that I already could spot in the chat. I think, Jessica, you're going to be the perfect person to take this one. Are you changing your sustainability communications given the current political climate, especially in the US market? If yes, how?
So it's interesting. I think this question goes to another question around greenwashing. I think with all of the greenwashing, talking about sustainability in a public forum often feels like everyone is waiting for you to misstep. And like Beatrice was saying, I don't think anyone is greenwashing on purpose. I think it's just such a challenging place and a challenging topic to talk about. Brands are not purposefully trying to deceive or lie. And so I think there is definitely the other side of the spectrum, where now greenwashing, which was a big topic at Climate Week 2 weeks ago, where everyone is just so nervous to talk about this that we're not talking about it at all. And the unfortunate part about that is that we lose maybe some momentum, because consumers think brands have dropped off or initiatives have paused, but in reality, it's just the nerves around talking about the topic. So from my perspective, we are a global brand, so our communications go far beyond just the United States, but I do see an aspect of greenwashing just generally in the industry, in sustainability, and I understand why. So I think we need to come back a little bit and really, like everyone was saying, we need to be able to be comfortable to celebrate our successes, but also our failures, and learn from one another. I think we're all in this together, and the industries, whether you're in apparel, whatever it may be, we need to be honest about our faults and our successes so that we can learn from one another, and so that consumers can really start to understand that this is challenging. There isn't just an overnight solution to these problems. So we don't specifically communicate just the United States market versus global, so I don't have like a specific answer to that. But I do think we need to come back and find a happy medium.
Amazing, thank you so much. Next question is, how is AI influencing your sustainability communication strategies, tactics, both in terms of audience, users, people won't read your report, content bots are doing that for them instead, and in terms of content production. So I think if there are any volunteers, maybe you have already used tech or AI. Does anyone want to elaborate on this one? Because I don't think I'm the right person to point the perfect person to answer this question. Perhaps you know best what your experience has been with AI or tech. Who wants to go?
Well,
I can
go for it, Samai. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. So for AI, personally, I haven't been really using it in the communications in terms of this, again, like coming back to the reporting. But we do use some platforms. So usually for data verification and data collection, we used to use Excel files or Word documents, and we would circulate those around and to different stakeholders, asking them to fill them in. Obviously, in terms of it would be a format, but now we are using some digital platforms, which actually has made reduces the risk of making mistakes. Also, because it's a digital repository, you have the opportunity to look back at what you've already reported on. So then it gives you a good momentum to build on the past. So AI in that sense, we haven't been using it, but there are definitely tools, digital tools to help you with the reporting and fact-checking, data verification, and substantiation of documents. So that is something, Sphera is one of them, for example, the name dropping here, but that's one of the main platforms that has helped us a lot with data verification and data collection, for sure.
Amazing. You actually answered the next question, which was what technology you use to organize external sustainability communications. But Juliette, I think you also wanted to elaborate a bit on this.
No. It was very generic. I mean, AI, you use it, but you need to be smart in using it, right? It doesn't stop you to think, but you actually can win a lot of time. So it's applicable to any sphere, including communication, I believe. So that was my 2 cents on this.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Next
Can
question.
I pick one
see...
question as well? I see a very nice question here that I would love to be answered by the panel, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
I see one from Muskan is
I was just going for that one.
Okay, we're very like-minded as usual. How can you differentiate yourself when it comes to storytelling? It always feels like reading different versions of the same message, that it's the right thing to do, etc., etc. Maybe Beatrice, would you like to tackle this one from your side, and then perhaps someone would like to elaborate on it as well? Yeah,
it's a great question. I agree.
Yeah.
I was also triggered by that question when I saw it. No, it's so I feel like maybe going back to that point of linking your sustainability communication to real world impacts, right? And one way of doing that is starting with what your company does and defining that sphere of influence and defining what are those like tangible positive outcomes of from your actions, and kind of like extrapolating from that into that wider, bigger picture of climate change and all of these things. I use something called the theory of change framework a lot, right? So I don't know if everyone is familiar with that, but it's a really great way, systematic way to map what your company does, what are those direct positive outcomes, tying that to a wider narrative. And I find that already is so different for every organization. So already you're creating a unique story. So that would be, I guess, like my just like off the cuff answer to that question. Starting really like it's almost like you have to start from where you are, like at the company. What is the company doing, and then extrapolating rather than the other way around, which often happens. Kind of like climate change is a big issue. What can we do about climate change? I think it's actually turning that around and saying, what are we doing already? What's the positive impact of that? What else can we do, right? So perhaps, that's my answer.
Great. Oh, you're on mute for us still.
Yeah.
Sorry. Amazing. Thank you, Beatrice. I don't know if we have time to tackle another question, Robert, or shall we proceed to closing the session because we only have 2 minutes?
Let's maybe do a last one, and then we close it.
Sure. I think there's a really nice one here. What would your advice be working in the retail industry in an associate position? How would you approach the communications team if you think that their strategy is leading more towards greenwashing than a genuine interest in sustainability? And how do you think you could open that channel of communication with senior leadership? Samara, since you're coming from a bit of a non-sustainability background, how would you, assuming you would be someone who's approached by let's say, an associate like this? What would you advise them? How would you advise them to proceed?
I'm actually reading the question. How to work communication if you think their strategy is more towards great done. So I can give you a real life example of very quickly about biodegradability, which I think that when it comes to our business, we see a lot of claims how nitrile gloves can be biodegradable, which is absolutely not true. They're plastic made. They cannot biodegrade naturally. And I think that as a person who maybe doesn't have a technical background, you would read that and you think, oh, great, biodegradability, it's great for the environment, it biodegrades, so you don't have to do anything. It just dissolves on its own. And we had a monthly end user call, which we created a whole narrative around it. So I think that the best way you could tackle this is to understand the gaps that you are facing, because you cannot tackle everything, right? There's so many different messages out there, greenwashing or not, that you have to choose your battles as well. I think that the first step would be to identify what are the areas where the greenwashing is impacting your business. Like, for example, for us, it's the claims that nitrile is biodegradable. It can be different for, so I think that maybe a bit of a research through your commercial teams to understand how those greenwashing are impacting the business, and really create a detailed narrative regarding that, and hopefully you can get some time on the customer's agenda to discuss it with them. And I would say get help. That's where you need your subject matter experts. So it doesn't, of course, I'm all for simplification, the message, but you also need to add some data substantiation to what you're trying to do when it comes to greenwashing, because you can only combat it with data. Sorry, I try to be very fast because I know we don't have a lot of time, but it's interesting. I think that first identify which area is impacting your business, and you can have a better tailored message to it. Hopefully I answered it.
Thank you. I think that was a very practical and helpful answer. Thank you. I think it's time for us. I want to thank everyone, every panelist for joining, for such an insightful, interesting discussion. I personally learned a lot, and I hope the same for the audience. And now I'm going to hand over to Robert to close the session.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe I will ask every panelist for a one-liner, two-liners, also fine, on a final advice, or to share your thoughts. Yeah, to everyone who dialed in. And in the meantime, I will launch our poll on which topic you would like us to tackle next in the upcoming webinar. So the topic you vote for, in the next 30 days, we will create some content for you on a specific topic. We will host the upcoming panel session on the topic to, provide as much value as we can to the industry. So definitely let us know what the topic is. It's the most challenging for you in the 30, 60, 90 days ahead, and we will get to work. Maybe in the meantime, Jessica, some final thoughts from your side, piece of advice you would like to share?
Sure. I think high level, baby steps. We have a lot to accomplish in sustainability, and it can often feel very overwhelming for those of us deep in the weeds. So baby steps, keep going, one foot in front of the other. I know this is challenging, and talking about it is also challenging, but just keep moving forward, and find folks that you can relate to, and teams like Dazzle that can help and support.
Thank you. Juliette?
Yes, keep on going. I will relate to that. And when it comes to sustainable communication, I think let's keep in mind the overall message of the objective is communicating to build trust and credibility. So what do you need to do to achieve this overall goal of communicating about your efforts? So that would be my final sentence. Thanks.
Sabare?
Yeah, and from my side, because I saw this a lot with how do we get other people to join. I think that don't worry too much about having everybody on board. I think focus on having the right message and having the right strategy. And I think the people will find their interest eventually. So I think that focus on the strategy first and fixing it.
Great. Beatrice, last but not least.
Yeah. I think in one sentence, I would just say, make your sustainability communication count. That's what I would say.
Great. Well, for the ones who dialed in perhaps a little bit later, Adam, our marketing lead, we have received probably a few emails prior to this webinar. We'll follow up within 48 hours with the recording. There is a link in the chat functionality already to sign up for the next webinar. Topic still, to be decided, depends on the votes. With that, I want first off to thank the panelists, Juliette, Samaré, Beatrice, Jessica, and also my co-host Farah, for joining. Really, really great discussion. I'm pretty sure the participants walked away with a lot of different ideas and inspiration. So I want to wish everyone a great rest of the day, and hopefully see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.